I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everybody to our study session. Jeremy, do you have anything you wish to talk to the board about?
I sent all you the report, so you should have it there somewhere. I've been staying fairly busy here the last few months, so March was, I think, 69, so, which for us is busy, I know for others it's not, but other than that, things are going well. Keeping our times down where they need to be, so.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Adam.
Morning.
How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Do you want to go over your report?
I can. 202 total for the month of March, a little above last year, average of 6.5 a day, not including our transfers, that's just 9-1s. Times are pretty much all on par. The median back in service is a little extended because if you look at the second page, we did have several, the Union and Carl, which kind of pushes those times out a little bit, but still within acceptable standards. Nothing too out of the ordinary on classes taught. I added a line this month. We taught 7 classes, but we had 106 students between those 7 classes, mainly because we did a CPR first aid for the entire freshman class. So that really bumped our numbers up for the number of students for the month. Down our quality indicators, our chest compression fraction was 79, so a little under my 80% or my 90% goal. But 60% is the industry standard. I set a pretty high goal, so I'm still happy with that, but I'm working with the crew to bump that up a little bit to 100% on our 12-week times. I did send my crew and myself down to Crawford County Friday night for mutual aid on their tornado relief. They actually did a really good job. I was pretty impressed. So I'm going to work with Jill on maybe a couple things that we could improve in our system. But overall, pretty busy month for us. Questions, comments, concerns? I've got IDPH and Carl here today doing our annual inspection.
So you need to do it.
I still got about 30 minutes. So.
Do you want to, Monica's going to talk to us, do you want to do any introduction?
I think we all know Monica.
Well, I mean, it's more what she's going to talk about.
Oh yes, the food ordinance, sorry, that's like 2 ordinances back. Yeah, the food ordinance, which we have talked about before in here, and Monica just needs to come in and do the formal presentation, because there were a couple of...
Actually, I did the formal presentation, you all approved it, and there was, section 4 was
Right.
left out.
Yeah.
So it's in the code, it's not anything that we've changed, but it was left out, and I wanted to make sure that the proper document was on file with the county clerk's
So
office.
do we need to amend
Well,
our
if-
approval?
Probably,
Yeah,
I
I
just,
think so.
just to make sure everything is on the up and up.
That's
So,
fine.
I did bring a copy, but it's, like I said, it's just that section 4 was omitted from the copy I gave you before, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Stuff happens.
Yeah, it does.
We never forget anything, do we?
Good. So, like I said, just the section 4 there, and,
So Monica, you've got that electronic, would you email that to me?
yes,
So
and
we
here's,
can get
do you
it
want a
on
hard
the
copy?
next agenda?
If you have a hard.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just-
do,
then I'll
and
save
it's got the signature because I'm learning every time on these.
And section
Okay.
4 is in here?
It
and-
is, yes.
Okay, that's where you all signed it? Okay.
Yeah.
So we can just put an agenda item to amend,
Amend.
including section.
Yes. And then, just the other thing, and Lisa has probably already talked to you about this, but I thought since I was gonna be here and I had other things to talk about, I would just bring these numbers to you. We did look at the summer food program, got information from Douglas County, and, our board agreed that we just don't have the funding this year, but that I personally think that we could seek funding next year and tie some of the summer food program in with our goals for our I-plan. So I think there's great opportunity here, but as you can see, we would be short of almost $51,000. So that's where we are now, and of course, trying to it takes a little while to find grant funding and to, get that in hand.
As the grant guru, are you saying that you think that you can probably put something together there?
I have to find appropriate funding, so I'll have to do some research, and I've got staff that'll help do that, and then, but I have ideas on, for instance, well, the way the summer food it's run different, has been run differently through the years, but the model I like is to provide a breakfast, then have some activities with the kids where we could have some teaching moments. They won't feel like teaching moments, but sometimes we get into the schools, but the schools get tired of us coming in all the time. They have their own things to do. So a summer program would be really wonderful to work with some kids on self-esteem, anti-bullying, because those things are both in our I-plan. So that's my goal. Find something that would fit, and it wouldn't necessarily be just the food plan. And the problem, Douglas County said that they are not working with ISB anymore because they've had so much trouble with the reimbursement is so low. It doesn't cover even the cost of the food, let alone the cost of the program. So I think that this is a time to look at other options and try to find some funding that would be secure and move forward in that direction. And really have an impact. I mean, serving the kids food obviously has an impact, but I think it's such a shame to have those kids in our presence and not take the opportunity to do some of the things that our community has identified as weak areas or problem areas. So, anybody got questions on that?
No, and I appreciate, some of their staff went over to Douglas County, had really good heart-to-heart conversation. And of course, the Douglas County staff were very open and honest about
They were.
it. And it was like,
Yeah.
as we have discussed in here and we have discussed with Amanda, the program is just not, it's not meeting what its original goals were. But I also heard that District 95 is doing a summer meal program.
I have not
Right.
heard that.
Yes.
So that's good.
There's an opportunity for accomplishing some I-plan goals without having this
Exactly.
whole program. That doesn't meet it for any of the other schools in the county.
Right.
So, and that's something that sometimes gets forgotten.
A partnership. Partnerships are good. So we will definitely, I'll contact Jeremy and see what's going on there and see if there's an opportunity for our health educator to get out and try to meet some of those goals, because it's important, and anytime we can connect with the kids outside of school, that's a great opportunity for us. Anything else on summer food?
I noticed it says 2 sites. Where are the 2 sites?
Well, our plan for this year was to have a site, I believe in, did we say Paris and Chrisman? That we discussed this a couple of meetings ago. So we had Paris and Chrisman, I believe, for this year.
Okay.
Or no, it was Chrisman in Kansas. Chrisman in
Okay.
Kansas. But the goal would be to have sites in all of the
Right.
little places, so, in all the villages.
So you're going with a summer food you're not?
Not this year.
Not this year, no, we don't have the
Okay,
funding for this
so
year.
Douglas County, we worked with Douglas County last year, so where were the sites last year?
Rec center and off the tracks, because
Okay,
that was the only place we could even get kids to come to
So
when we
is Doug-
picked them up.
so is Douglas
Douglas
County,
County is not.
so there's no summer food program in Edgar County anywhere, other
Well,
than maybe Paris is
District
gonna do
95.
something?
Right.
Okay,
But also, I think Jeremy talked about that they were gonna try to involve maybe Kansas with that program also.
Yeah, and I'll talk to Jeremy
Yeah.
about that, because that would be a
I
great
think
partnership.
Crispin-
We would have staff to support that.
Mhm.
We just don't have $50,000 to do the program. But like I said, I think there's good opportunity. I'll search for grants. I have a sort of work plan in my head, so
yeah, okay,
that's the plan.
all right.
And then the third thing I have, and this is really with Bellwether, we are going through all of our ordinances, just making sure that everything is correct and complete and there's not anything that needs to be updated. And this board had expressed some concerns about some nuisance issues throughout the county. So we looked at that nuisance ordinance with Bellwether, presented it to the Board of Health, and there were some concerns. So I did send this to the state's attorney, and I have not gotten it back. I did contact them, they still haven't answered me. But the ordinance that was drafted, it's just a draft, it's not, we were just trying to kind of listen to you and figure out what we needed to do. We took models from other health departments and of course the code. But I wanted to provide you with the draft from our department and what's on file at the courthouse. And this is not something that you need to decide today, but our board felt like the county board really needed to take a look at these two things. The state's attorney is looking at the proposed, and certainly it is just proposed. Like I told the Board of Health, we all come from different perspectives, and I think it's very, very important that everyone speaks to this and we don't end up with some, you're not gonna let us end up with something that is not in the best interest of the county, but that's the goal. That's the goal for the health department employees. That's the goal for the Board of Health, and I know that's your goal. So I brought both ordinances for you to just look over. You don't have to discuss it today. There's not a big hurry, but our board decided that the county board really should have the first input in terms of saying, this is what we think would work best. And then we can go from there. So
So it
Is
is,
this the one we passed?
this is, yeah, and this was from
Back in-
2010.
right.
Yep.
And the other one you got is, I know here a month or two ago, we saw a copy of it. Is that the same thing?
It is, because
Okay.
we sent it to the state's attorney. I've not heard anything, but like I said, this one was, we used other county, this is common practice between
Right.
health departments that you get information about. So that's where this comes from. It's not that this is what we're trying to get you to pass. We want this board and the county, and the Board of Health to be happy with what we have and that it be in the best interest of our community.
So-
So
Has your Board of Health saw the,
they've seen it, yes, but
And they
didn't
liked
pass
it?
it. They had some issues with it.
okay, all right.
So,
Well, I need to know.
so, that's why, but the Board of Health felt like really the county board
Right.
should,
Yep,
That's for Phil.
I understand.
should have the first input.
Yeah.
Before the Board of Health tries to pass anything or make a bunch of changes, we just felt like,
But ultimately, the county board passes this,
yeah, the Board of Health would pass it at our place and then it would come to you for final approval. But rather than do a bunch of drafts.
right, I understand.
I'll talk to Philip and see.
Yeah.
They've been, they're
He
really
did-
crunched.
He did contact me, I reached out to him last week and he contacted me, I know he's looking at it. And I think he's trying to have something for me before our Board of Health meeting, but really, you guys need to have input before the Board of Health. So, that, I just wanted you to have a copy of those two things. You can come back to us with the things that you think need to be changed and we'll be happy to work on that.
Yep.
Short of zoning, we just need the most effective instrument that we can find. That's,
Yeah.
you know,
So with what we drafted, you're gonna have a picture of kind of what's going on in other counties. And then, you can go from what you passed in 2010. Does
I'm not
any,
even sure who drew up the original ordinance that we passed, Carl, I don't
I
remember.
don't remember.
Yeah, so I don't know whether you had, the health department had any
we
input
had
at
a
all.
different one than what was on file, so this has been very eye-opening for
Enlightening,
me.
yes.
Yes,
It's been a good
as I go.
exercise.
But we're gonna
Yes.
be on the same page.
Yes, and that's where we need to be with any ordinance that we pass, yes.
Annual report, the green booklets.
I didn't bring those today, I'm sorry. I
And
will
did you
make
get a
sure-
chance to talk to Gary about getting it in the paper?
No, I haven't,
Okay.
but we need to get the annual report in the paper.
We've got another study session, so.
Yes, I know you
Okay, we
do.
just wanna see you
So,
every,
yeah, you just want me to come and take up your time, don't you?
You're not
So-
taking it part-time. Okay.
So I really appreciate your input on all of that, and do you have any other questions for me?
Are we proceeding on the, what would you call the ordinance that you were looking at for trucks and mobile food ordinances?
That mobile food ordinance was already passed
Yeah.
by your board.
Oh, we did
Yeah,
pass it?
yeah,
Oh, that's right.
yeah, yeah.
Right, with the
So
one
that was-
change.
With the one change, that's
Yeah,
right, okay.
so that was passed.
I'm just catching up.
Yeah, that's okay, that's okay. Well, things are going very well at the health department. We've got several site visits coming up. We've got an HIV site visit coming up. We've got a family case management site visit coming up. And we are seeing over our caseload in those programs. And so we're seeing a lot more HealthWorks cases, which those are DCFS cases. And it just seems like those numbers just keep rising. We have had to ask for more funding for that program because what we're getting right now is not covering our nurses' time. So we're working on getting more funding for that. And I am
You have full staff. I saw something in the paper where you.
No, we're not
hire
full.
somebody.
I have 2 open positions, a dentist and a public health nurse,
Okay,
but
that's
everything
what's on the
else,
paper, I think.
we've hired a billing clerk. Our billing clerk is cutting back, and then we've hired a receptionist. Sheila Williamson retired, so her kind of partner has taken that full-time position, and she was always the backup for that position and is well-trained in that position. And we've hired a receptionist, and we had hired a DON. She was an internal employee, and we advertised, but she
That's
was
all good.
yeah, she was the only one that applied, but after about a month in the job, she decided it was not for her. So we have hired now a DON in training who is actually from the county. I'm really excited about that. We like her a lot. She'll start in May, the second week of May. And did I get them all? Oh, we just hired a breastfeeding peer counselor. Also really excited about her. So we're moving in the right direction, thank goodness. And we're just still
I'm
looking
proud
for
of
a
you
dentist
guys.
and a
I
public
applied
health
for
nurse.
that.
I just
It could be harder than, I saw some facial
Yeah, I
expressions.
applied for that.
Never had to do that.
No, me either.
The only other thing, maintenance.
Maintenance, yes, so we have James, and he is working with us, trying to get caught up. He's probably working 15 to 20 hours a week right now, getting some things caught up, but doing a great job. You know, he usually comes in the mornings, and he's just worked out really well. So
Okay.
as far as IT, Austin has been dedicating some time to the health department, at least once a week, but sometimes he's there twice a week, and that's been going really well as well. He's worked through many kinks for us. So
Great.
Have you gotten your HVAC problems ironed out?
well, I just talked to him again this week.
Okay.
So that's a very slow process, but I did say, listen, before summer comes, we have to have a plan. So I kind of think we got put on the back burner for a while, and then I contacted him again, and I think we're on the front burner again. They're great to work with, but
Sycamore, correct?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Well,
it's been, I think they have some plans, so I hope to have some information by the Board of Health meeting,
Okay.
but, I can't make people get
Can't
stuff
make
done by
things
my
happen all the
timeline,
time, right?
so,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
But we're working on it to answer your question. Anything else I can answer for you guys?
Did you get that building in the back completed yet?
It's completed. We will have to find some funding for the doors, but we knew that. Our van is, I'm glad you asked that question, thank you. Our van is complete, it is wrapped. We are going to be having a ribbon cutting. They're already using it to provide school services. It's their transport vehicle, which is wonderful. Just exactly what we needed. So the ribbon cutting for that is May 15th at 3:45. So you're all invited. Anything else?
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry I have to leave you, but I'm wearing many hats right now.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Hey, Andy?
I can't think of anything that we should talk about right now.
Okay. How about you?
I went out to the shelter, they do have the, new door in for Andrew's office, really nice. We do have an issue that needs to be resolved, so we have a meeting tomorrow at noon, and probably we'll have to have a closed session on Wednesday to talk about it, so.
You don't wanna do it today?
Now I wanna have Andrew here,
That's fine.
yeah, I like to have her here to explain. So, I wanted to have a meeting before we bring it to the board anyway, so,
That's fine.
okay,
Just thought I'd ask.
all right.
Russ? Carl?
I forgot to bring it up at the county highway meeting, but the building out on Clinton Road, you know, that's been an issue for the last 6 months, it's gone.
Yeah.
And, so that's kind
Where'd
of,
it go?
That's good.
I don't know,
We
it's
don't care.
I
gone.
don't care. Cool state line.
Yeah,
Gone.
Just wondered. Just wondered.
The
That was nice.
concrete blocks and everything are still there, so I'm gonna talk to the neighbor there and see if he wants them. If he doesn't, then I'll talk to the county highway and they can take their loader out there and load them up and haul them off, so they don't get into them this summer mowing.
That was a nice building.
We've had a couple, in the last few weeks, we've had a couple meetings down at the Diamond Brothers building, going over who's gonna go where and all that kind of stuff. We met with, the public defender, and I can't think what that other, Jericho's.
Court
water-
security.
Court
Or court
services.
services.
Court services. She's already in there currently.
Yep.
And we met again last week and trying to figure out where the public defender and all that's going, and I think we've got everybody's in agreement on where it's gonna work out best, and we've got, we know where the treasurer's going, we know where assessor's going. As Jill was there, and she's gonna have 3 of the rooms, and we know where that's gonna go. We know where Ross IT's gonna go, so we're kinda getting it finalized on where everything's gonna be.
We got a plan B to go over with you.
Oh, okay.
That's why he didn't have a report.
Well, I thought we-
got to everybody and,
No, I thought we had that all.
well,
No.
it just, we have some ideas.
I think
Okay, all right.
All right.
the wrench in it.
No. Every time we just about get something done, this one comes up with
Okay,
something.
well, forget it.
No, but
Yeah.
we are moving,
It's-
the whole
right.
point of what Carl's saying is that we're
We're
getting things done.
Mhm.
They're supposed to start on the roof at the end of the month, and And then
Rowdy should be,
I think we'll keep it there as like a backup or something. He
Yeah,
has
yes,
a
yes.
house animal shelter.
yes, that'll be maintained. And then, as you'll see on the agenda, the, trade of the property that little building is for the easements is up for approval, so that'll take care of the side parking and access through there. So that's all moving forward. So go ahead, Carl.
Yeah. There was something else I was gonna talk about.
So are there gonna be any empty offices? It sounds like you're gonna do a pretty good job.
Yeah, there should, if you want an office, we can probably come up with one.
You need one.
Yeah, there's a lot of offices in that.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
I just had no concept of the number of rooms or anything.
Can I ask you a question? If S is moving out there, is there a backup generator or plans to put a backup generator on that building?
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
can't be there without a generator,
right.
okay?
And is the federal government paying for that generator?
That, the state, IEMA has got it on the list.
All right.
because we'll need to leave it one way or the other.
Where it is until
Where
we
it
get that.
is, or rent one, move it, but the backup's gonna need a generator too. Cause if we're using the backup, chances are we're in trouble around here,
Yeah.
so.
So we had some, I've got some takeaways from the incident in Crawford County, so I'm
Yeah.
just thinking ahead, and
Yes.
what issues we had down there and what we can think forward on, so.
Mhm.
Please, cause
Share anything.
we
yeah.
may have forgotten that, but this time we hadn't, but if there's other things, please let us know.
So is there an emergency services meeting where you'll be sharing some of that you've learned?
I've had an initial conversation with Jill, but there's nothing that's been put on the books as far as a full-blown meeting.
Learning from others is
Oh, absolutely.
the best.
I spent the night in incident command, and I will say, they did a very good job down there, but definitely identified some weak points that we could build on, so.
And we have Jesse Lusader, he was on the 911 board, he's resigned, and we're gonna appoint Adam, barring he gets, or not barring, provided he gets approved at the Wednesday's meeting, he's gonna be the new member on the 911 board.
So we get a vote on Adam?
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
I fully expect it.
Hey,
There's a lot of wind blowing around here.
I'm used
So
to
he
it.
can put, have some input to talk when we have a 911 meeting about what, he
Yeah.
learned, in
That's a
the
good
emergency situation, so I think it'll be a good addition to the board.
I think so.
The other item, I can't remember now what it was,
Well,
so.
if you think of it, just
But
interrupt us. Phil?
Nope.
Lisa?
At least,
Oh, good.
oh boy.
Let me refer to my calendar.
Two phones, this is not good.
I know. Okay, so I felt a need to go to Chrisman City Council and Chrisman Neighborhood Watch this last month. I think it was good. I told them a little bit about, just kind of an update on what county board's doing at the Chrisman City Council meeting. And also forewarned them with Corey Cheney totally grasped that they would need to consider their own ordinances regarding wind and solar if they so chose. And I advised that, of course, they would need to work with their own attorney. Also advised them to contact the mayor of Villa Grove, because she's been really active and has done a lot of study on it. Neighborhood Watch meeting. There was really excellent turnout from the Neighborhood Watch folks, not so much from Chrisman. It was educational. My trivia takeaway from that is, if you have a Ford F-250 or 350, you better watch that you don't get your catalytic converter taken. But those seem to be hotbeds for theft. I attended a meeting in Springfield hosted by our organization, our county board organization, regarding wind and solar, the new law, and what we could possibly or could not include in our ordinances that wouldn't, that if things that were not specifically stated in the law, we could perhaps go ahead and have in ours. So that was very educational. Andy that presented is one of the attorneys that is with the firm that we already utilize, Heil Royster.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated how he presented. Then I also was invited to listen in on a meeting, 2-hour conference call on Friday on wind and solar from another group, and they also had an attorney. There was some good input and feedback and thought, but I pushed to come to shove, I'm gonna stick with Heil Royster on what is and isn't allowable. I think that the group I listened to on Friday thinks they have more power than they do. But it was still good to hear.
On that note, and their legal assistant, I haven't been able to talk to Rocco, said that past what we've suggested as far as the template, add what you feel comfortable with, then we can go back and look at it and then amend as clarification comes on some of the issues. And you agree with that?
I do, I just know that, we'll have to move quickly, because like I said, I think June 1, we could be hit with, applications,
And you can't,
and we cannot have another moratorium.
right, and the thing is that it's been tested in court, judge won't let you say, okay, you applied, but we've changed, we can't go back on them. Once they've applied, it freezes all of the application to the ordinance that was in effect at the time of application.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, but we did learn, don't ever cash that check
Right.
until you are ready to actually accept the application. Otherwise, you're accepting the check, says that you
It's kind of like a
accepted.
contract, if you take money on a contract.
Insurance check, any of those.
Yeah.
Broadband committee is plugging away. We had a productive face-to-face meeting, earlier this month. The subcommittee of Terry Sullivan, Matt Sullivan, Tim Hansel, and some Clint Ormiston, met with quite a few providers just to learn more. Really, a provider can do what they want, but if they are going for state and federal funding, we can provide or not provide a letter of support which would have influence. So what we are still learning is who's interested, what they want to do, where they want to go. And that's where our group is still thinking, if we had our way, what would we want this environment to look like? So, how piecemeal, it doesn't appear that we would have anybody interested in the entire county, and they all want to cherry pick. And there were local providers that were there that spoke, gave their input when they had the provider conversations. So we wanted to make sure we didn't leave them out of the opportunity. Gary, what else would you like to add? Gary is he's more involved than I am. And thank goodness he writes those articles in the paper, because he catches more on our Thursday morning calls than I do.
I just think it's going to be critical that there be some sort of countywide policy of what is desirable in a broadband system. The one thing I don't think is necessary is to just leave it up to the providers. Especially if they want that letter of support, you can say, we'll give you a letter of support, but you're not doing what we have in our our vision, our goals, and what ultimately I think that is a county board position. It just can't be this committee. The committee has no authority.
So, like with other groups, I do think that our committee needs to, we're still learning, very much in the fact-finding stage. And that committee will present, and this is built into it, the committee will present to the county board, and unless the county board feels differently or has a different vision, we would probably go with what our committee has come up with, because they are very thoughtful and deliberate in what they're doing.
And community-based.
Very community-based. So, you're right, the committee doesn't really have any authority, but I do think, I'm very confident we have good people on the committee, and that's where you gotta start, you gotta have the right people, and I really think we do. So we are plugging away. Anything else?
No.
All right. Last thing for me, although this would normally be a committee, I'm handing out, I worked on the solar, Jeff, you will be happy to know that we had a proposed ordinance that was a template that we could use.
Right.
And, would you pass that over to Augie just for the heck of it? And, it covered some of the things that we already had in ours.
Good.
Thank goodness, and they
Yes.
said it better anyway.
Well, good.
So,
Especially I see on emergency management and so forth.
Mhm.
Cool.
So if it's blue or red, I went in and added or changed, but otherwise, it did a good job. Now, on what Mr. C was just talking about,
You didn't number the pages.
no, I didn't, I'm sorry. Um,
I'm kidding.
I was gonna say something, couldn't figure out a nice way to say it. D on the front page. Kind of covers what he was saying in a very generic way. The bottom, the term commencement of construction as used in this ordinance includes any site development work, example demolition, grubbing, grading, excavation, road work, construction of project-related structures and infrastructure improvements regarding the commercial solar energy facility. So that acknowledges that they have to address it prior to construction. And if you'll flip on through, on page, we don't know, maybe 4, number 13, I added in the language that was already in ours regarding if it's within 500 feet of an airport and glare.
Right.
On to where I have it in red, vegetative screening. I highlighted it because they didn't set any specifics, but in the 2 meetings I went to, we have some leeway here on, we can require, like be a little more specific on screening for non-participating properties. So I think, but I don't know the terminology well enough. I'd probably either call Dyke or, I'm not sure, about what language would you use so they don't go to Real King and buy a tree this big and think that they've got it taken care of. So, get my drift. Ground cover and buffer areas, I have no idea why this wasn't in the template, because this is a really big deal. And it goes right back to what Mr. C was saying about, you can require, well, the law doesn't say you can't. You can require what they put in there. So do we want to require grass that's mown, cannot be higher than a foot, which is maybe not very practical, but anyway, I'm thinking weeds. And there's a fine line between weeds and pollinators. And first you get weeds and then the pollinators finally can take root. But again, this goes back to me keeping an eye on that one that's in Vermilion County, Illinois, north of me. And it looks like crap most of the year, and it is so full of Canadian thistle, and we just can't be having that. Besides, Canadian thistle is illegal.
Noxious weed, isn't
It's a noxious weed, even though our highway departments, the state highway department, doesn't mow and keep it down on interstates. But anyway, so we have some say there. We need to think about that. Lighting, which I see I've got a number problem there. I added lighting, which was in our original ordinance, just saying that you can't be annoying your neighbor. On to site assessment, a couple of pages on. It gives site assessment, which again goes back to what Mr. C was saying. And I added in the line from our existing one, the applicant should follow the guidelines for conservation practices submitted by the county soil and water. Now, I don't know that they should be submitted by or to.
Two,
I
probably.
think so. So, and then a couple pages on coordinating with emergency responders. I was so glad to see all of this in here.
Yeah.
And I just changed it because we had talked about making ESTA the overall receiver and coordinator of any emergency services and training. And then a couple pages on red at the top where it says the applicant will, repair, but it's in accordance with AMA, and I need to go back and read AMA because it's, I don't recall how specific the language was there. Next page,
What's the difference between the blue and the red?
the red is, you need to make a decision. The blue is where I took it from the other one,
It's an addition to.
yeah. I added the blue at the top on the decommissioning, and I don't know whether we can get by with this or not. In our ordinance, we had that, selected and, the professional engineer selected and paid for by the owner shall assess and certify. And I wanted to know, do you want it to be selected by county board or selected by the owner? Or,
That would be a question for Brokaw or Andy,
okay,
what we could legally do.
and I'm not sure we can get by with this sentence at all. Our old one said by the 6th, 11th, and 21st years, so I added a 15th just for the math, which would actually be a 16th. On down a little further. The law doesn't say anything about it, so I added in what we already had about us having the right, us or any of our staff to go to enter. And I don't know whether that'll pass or not. And there was no fine in there, in the template, and there's no language about it in the law, as I recall. So I kept D is what we had in our original ordinance about it. There was no repercussion for the violation. Well, that's a misstep. So we had it at 1,000 a day, if you think that's high enough. I couldn't even make any sort of a suggestion on the application fee. I looked at a couple ordinances, I couldn't find any information. In this one, they put it per megawatt as a suggestion, which makes total sense. Somebody at the meeting I went to, they were doing it by acreage, and they had a 693 acre solar farm that was coming in, and they did it by acre, and it ended up being almost $1 million for an application fee, and the lawyer said, that's fine, you can make it whatever you want, as long as you have that you're gonna refund whatever isn't utilized during the process. But in the law, it does say it has to be similar to other counties of your size. But there's nothing to look at to compare to see whether you're in the ballpark or not. So I have no idea on this fee schedule part. And maybe that's something our attorneys could suggest.
We can get them to answer us.
Yeah. And then there's also a building permit fee deposit, and I gotta tell you, we didn't do all this with our current project just north of Kansas. There are more details in here than we realized that we should do, because we just have an application fee.
I'm not sure, we don't have building permit fees.
Okay, is that really only zoned? Okay, that would be why we don't do that.
Additional costs of that.
Yeah, and there was not a statement like I thought there should have been, and I thought it was a real omission, so I put back in the additional fees as noted above portion. And that's it. So obviously I tackled solar first because it was easier to get my feet wet again.
Okay.
So if we pass this, does someone look at it and say, well, you can't do that, you can't do that?
Well, what I'm up against time for us to determine what we think and then send it to the state's attorney. And if the state's attorney chooses, then he hires,
Which he already has.
okay,
He says
so
he's not gonna review it.
I don't blame him. It
Okay.
requires a
So he's
specialist.
gonna have another attorney?
Yeah,
Right, Royster.
See, okay, all right.
Yeah.
And see if this
Who
falls in
did
line with what we,
right.
Right, and these are, most of that is drawn up, I'm assuming by Andy, for UCCI.
Yeah,
okay,
They're one of their attorneys.
okay,
The fallback position is just to, anything that's questionable is leave it out, which we don't necessarily wanna do, so,
I want somebody to tell me we can't do it.
mhm,
right. But otherwise, we don't wanna take a chance of not having something in place
right,
that meets the qualifications, and if we don't do that, and either we have nothing or we do it wrong, then we lose the ability to even have an ordinance. We want to avoid that, guys.
And also in here, which he had talked about, is the line that if any one section is determined to be illegal,
Oh,
it
yeah.
doesn't void the whole thing. So that was good to know
Oh,
too.
if you put that in, then that'll help us entirely.
Yes, yeah,
Then if we don't get anything totally worked out, we
Right.
can go with it.
but we're better to put too much in here and have to go back and take it out than we are to omit it originally.
How did the original template deal with fees? Have we pretty much worded that the way they
It was
did?
10,000,
10,000 period?
10,000 period, I'm like, ooh, we can't have that again. Because if we have to do hearings or anything else, which we have to have a hearing, that's required, which we didn't have to have before. So there are associated costs because they recommend, of course, this is more, it's not that it wouldn't happen with solar, but it's more contentious with wind. And they had a couple of horror stories, that you need to hire a hearing person, you have to, a hearing officer, you need to have your own attorney there, and you have to have a court reporter there.
So
And-
we're gonna have to bump our fee no matter what.
Yes, yes,
So
and
we-
so they were saying, make it high, because they're not gonna care. And,
Because we're gonna return anything.
because we're gonna return it,
We have to prove what we spent.
yeah.
In other words, if we make it 50 grand and spend 44, we gotta ship them back 6 grand.
But we're gonna hold that check for a lot of money until we get through the process, and then we'll take it out. Anything else?
So take a look at that stuff. We'll have the other one to you hopefully by the next study session,
Yes,
or if we have it sooner, shoot it out to you. And that's gonna follow the template on wind,
right.
so. Anything else? You must be exhausted after the weekend, everything you had. Alright. Let's see. On my report, resource officer Shiloh, that was one of the things that Jeff and we knew that they are going to, we had a sheriff's meeting along with the building and grounds. And Shiloh is looking at having a resource officer now, and they've been negotiating with the sheriff on having that and how they're gonna reimburse. And it's, looks like it's doing well. The sheriff seems to be in support of that, wouldn't you say?
mhm,
So we're moving forward on that one. Just so you'll know, the asphalt bid for the main runway at the airport is due the 27th or 28th of April. So we'll know where we sit with that. USDA, please don't forget, we're gonna have a short hearing before the regular board meeting on Wednesday at 8:45, so that we'll need at least some of you there. There doesn't have to be a quorum, but we'll receive any comments on the USDA grant that we're currently working. Most everything is in there. Josh is coordinating everything that's being turned in, from everything from agency sign-offs to things that we're producing here within the county. So that's moving forward.
Does everybody know what this USDA grant he's talking about
The 4.5 million?
for the jail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Carl, I just assume sometimes. So we're moving forward on that. For example, just, they came back out and did a drainage study on this to make sure that there were no wetlands, and they confirmed that there was no wetlands. So the Army Corps of Engineers could sign off on it, so, just to give you an example of some of the stuff. We're also, I think we just got the first idea of what our final contract will look like with Michael. I haven't even had a chance to look at it, haven't even had a chance to comment or really talk to him about it. There is some negotiation left on the guy or gal that will be doing the electronics and all of that, but they do have somebody picked out. Well, let's see. You've got the agenda there, if you haven't looked at it. We've got to execute property documents with Paris and Associates 1 LLC, which is the lot just north of the Diamond Brother Building. We'll be looking at the bids for the aerial photography to be flown in spring of '24 and accepting. We'll accept the judge's bid for courthouse modernization grant for courthoom 1, excuse me. Approve intergovernmental agreement with the city of Paris. We decided, rather than just letting them have it, to have we're talking about the aerials and so forth that they wanted, is to have an actual agreement which limits the use of it to the public and limit it to a one-time deal. And that they had to provide the hardware in order to get that, rather than us have to come up with a couple $100. But it just basically ties it down to what they can use it for, okay? In other words, an engineering firm can't grab it and then start making money on the deal, okay? Let's see. We're gonna reappoint Martha or Marty Irwin to the jury commissioner. Reappoint Scotty Ingram and get his bond taken care of. Appoint Rodney Wood for drainage district in Brockton. Accept resignation of Jesse Lusader from the 911 board and have Adam Webb reappointed. Resolution to accept bond and oath for Pat Road, trustee of Hume Fire Protection District. We have to maintain an agricultural committee which meets once a year with area farmers and interested taxpayers about how the state formulates farmland assessments. And Greg is gonna serve, Greg Henry will serve again, Dale English will serve again, and Tim Hansel will be added to that. So we've got a good geographic breakdown of who's serving on that committee. So, sounds good. So that's what's happening there. Any, financially, yes,
There was a last minute addition this
oh,
morning?
yes, I've got it written here and then I did.
Okay.
The Farm Bureau gave us a copy of an ordinance of support for the Farm Bureau here a couple meetings ago, and we'll be acting upon that at this meeting. Augie, I think you have it now, and.
Yeah, I have it, but it's on the agenda just in the nick of time.
Right,
So-
so we're gonna be acting upon that. Members of the Farm Bureau will be there also to talk to the board on Wednesday. Thank you, Augie.
Mhm.
I have one thing. It's Scott Ingram's birthday. So happy birthday to Scott. Thank you for all of
Your cake's out.
your efforts.
70 what?
Plus. 65.
Oh,
Really?
Whoa,
I thought somebody had shot you by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they think.
A little Medicare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thinking positive.
So,
Social Security, one more
Is that
year.
all you had, Lisa?
That is all I
Okay.
have.
Well, I had one other thing. I mentioned to Jeff, and I think we all talked about it a little bit, or somebody talked about it. Had 2 complaints about parking around the courthouse. I had complaints back there before voting on county employees parking around the square. And, you know, the people that complained had valid complaints. So I think we need to remind our county employees again, I don't know how we want to do it, that there's county parking available at the Edgar County Bank, well, Prospect Bank. They've said we're more than welcome to use those places. And again, sometime this month, they're supposed to be starting on the roof on the courthouse. So there's gonna be, you know, I don't know how that's all gonna work out. There's probably gonna be some restricted parking because of the construction and everything, and that's gonna be less parking. So that's why we need to encourage our county employees not to park around its public parking. You know, people wanna come to courthouse, well, if all of, you know, they have to, the county employees taking up parking places for the public. You know, there's no reason they can't park over at Prospect. It's just right across the street from the north entrance of the courthouse.
They say at Prospect, but that's in their parking lot, not in front of Prospect.
right.
Yes.
This would be on
On
the
both
extreme
sides.
right,
Right.
extreme left.
Because they kind of want to keep those for older people that come
Right.
in.
You got lots of room on the
On the
north side of it
Two
too.
side, and we've got, and we've also got a full parking lot down by, in front of the jail.
Right, that's ours.
Parking lot.
I think we need to send a letter signed by the county board, either send it to all the employees or to the department heads to pass it on, that we encourage them to use those spots to park instead of the public parking around the square.
I did mention to the mayor, but I haven't really made a request because we haven't decided, but we thought maybe requesting more handicap parking on the north side of the courthouse to allow, because that's our entrance,
Right.
to allow folks not to have to come all the way around if they can't find a parking space on the
Right.
north side, then, but anyway, but that would be up to all of us to decide, but I think it's a good theory.
Right.
And if we do have any employees that are, you know, challenged, maybe it'd be good, they should be able to get handicap parking, and that would make it easier for them to find a place where it'd be easier for them to get into the courthouse also. Right? Yes.
That would.
Well,
Needs a handicap parking.
you never know.
That's right.
It's not my job to keep track of him.
Just south of Main Street too, the restaurant, that's a public parking spot, isn't it?
Right,
Yep.
yes it is.
There's plenty of parking spaces, but we had run into some resistance. So we'll just, is that something that we could ask Augie to send out a letter? Maybe that we, or at least get a letter ready and that we get it signed? What?
Doesn't matter to me.
What do you think, Augie?
I serve at the will of the board.
Well, and we sent one out, what, 3 years ago?
Yes.
Didn't work?
Well, it was more specific to don't park in front of those, in front of the bank. What, they got 8 or 9, 10 spaces right there in exchange for doing the west and the east line in their parking lots.
I think we need to maybe send out a letter that says
There's
in
always plenty of
consideration
bank
of
on
the
each side.
citizens who use the courthouse, that we not take up all the parking spaces.
I'll draft a letter and get it out
And
to
the
you.
annex.
We're looking out for the health of everyone.
Yep.
If you park far away to walk.
See what you can
Good
come up
for you.
with, Augie. I know you don't have anything else to do.
I always park far away.
Did you have a report you wish to give, Augie?
No, I'm not ready yet, thank you.
Is there anything else to come before the meeting this morning? Do we need any closed session for any reason? Hearing none?
May have to have one on Wednesday.
Right, that's what you said. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved by Andy and Russ, what a surprise. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
That's one quick arm you got.
We are adjourned.
You were way ahead of
Thank you
him.
to everybody.